Fearless fire truckers, this is internet personality Vangelus, and the larger side of Legacy United's Wave 1 animated representation was some guy called Optimus Prime, coming in at the Voyager class price point. Whether or not this universe's version wants to accept it, that name carries some weight every time it pops up in a modern Generations line, especially when it doesn't have Earthrise Optimus Prime's legs. Delivering Transformers animated renditions in Legacy has been about as heated a topic as the Lion's Transformers Prime cameos, so let's see how David Kay's heroic Autobot role turned out.
This video was sponsored in part by ToyHacks.com. Use the code MAYTHEVANGELUS through the month of May 2024 for 15% off your order of labels and other paraphernalia. Using the code supports the channel. Supporting the channel feeds the machine.
This new take on the classic and vaguely morphic animated Optimus Prime truck mode makes a number of decisions that work for me, for the most part, in an attempt to actually keep the main four wheels bound to the rear two-thirds of the truck mass. There's a third smaller pair of wheels secreted within the massive front bumper structure. The surface detail slider has also been turned up, which I'll just say up front doesn't really bother me. There's also a horizontal block of blue foot stuff, which I found massively off-putting when the toy was revealed, and have since become ambivalent towards now that I have the figure in hand. There are things sculpted in there. It's, truck storage. Basically, I think it's really obvious who this is, and the general shapes are there in a way that works for my tastes. The black and silver wraparounds on the main meatball of the cab have some great delivery. Boy, do I wish the rear taillights had been painted in with as much punch, or at all, as they're a great touch of sculpting that gets 100% hidden away in robot mode. While the truck mode has lots of visible 5mm ports, the axe accessory has a single, asymmetrical peg above its symmetrical ones, placed perfectly to lay the weapon down on the footboxes of the truck's rear bed. Very cool geometry for me, a very axe laying on the back of a truck for most of the rest of you. Hey, look at those two rectangle holes, by the way. Trailer hitch proofing. Oh, you can also remove the emergency light block from its roof-mounted 5mm attachment to reveal 3 5mm ports. I wonder why 3. What are partials and repaints gonna put up there? The way that Legacy animated Optimus Prime's legs transform is really cool, doing literally anything they can do to not run a classic Optimus thigh inhale, while still making a blue truck bed turn into blue robot legs. While there's no classic Voyager animated Optimus tornado transformation, you do move the hips down in a similar way, and then you get into the really odd part, which is the geometrically fascinating way the silver bumper masses form Optimus Prime's flanks, relying on a lot of very specific and very angled tab slot connections to lock everything in place. It's mass-shiftily cool to me how an aforementioned meatball of truck cab blows out into both a hexagonal torso and the burly arms mounted on either side. The arms do a very nostalgic animated Optimus unfurl, and hey, they used ball joints rather than hinges on those fold-away wrists. Be patient and leave the chest plate hovering up there till the end, and you kinda sorta get a dynamic head reveal. It's worth it! Be patient! Animated Optimus Prime made the leap to Legacy world almost entirely intact, bearing most of his iconic physical traits and a very similar silhouette, like extremely similar. The massively breasted figure is straight up designed to be standing in a dynamic S-curve hero posture. Many flat surfaces, particularly Prime's forearms and shins, have received G1 Optimus-style sculpting that is absolutely going to be up to your subjective taste. I think the pointed G1-ness of it is in line with a lot of Animated's detail design habits myself. However, both new and old detail is a little bit lost to a lack of yellow paint pops outside of Optimus Prime's iconic quad-linked nipple lights and blazing crotch rhombi. His knuckles and boots have 4 squares that are begging for hits of yellow, along with the secondary quad-linked upper nipple lights along his collarbone. His boot soles have also lost their black lining, though that hypothetical ink could have some adverse effects on the delivery of the alt mode. The head sculpt is another likely point of stylistic contention where I feel fairly non-combative, as animated Optimus is both maskless and chin-shaven. The masklessness is absolutely in line with the character, and to be honest, I find the legacyification of his chin to be rather inoffensive. And by happenstance, it throws an aesthetic chain link over to Legacy Evolution Prowl. The facial color work is crisp and punchy, which does a lot for me, regardless of the stylization. Optimus includes his fancy funny fire axe, which can sling sideways across his back, or diagonally I guess, but that makes the peg unseat itself. He can hold it with a little handle, or you can yank on the click-locked shaft to extend it for some big fulcrum double-handed action. One little downside of this is that on some copies of the toy, the axe can have some uneven friction around the shaft, leading to embarrassing axe blade spinning depending on how gravity's feeling at the moment. The axe's rocket butt is equipped with a 5mm hole, so if you have a matching effect part, you can totally do the thing. Big beefy hunks, can they pose? Yes. Ball socket head really works, and there is a joint at the bottom of the stem so you can dedicate a little bit of glancing down or looking up. It's lovely, especially with such a detailed looking visage. The massive man-hunk arms can totally move in a 360 on a big double mushroom peg that sometimes can have like a lump of mold flash that can make this feel a little bit weird or a little bit self-pop-outy. The double mushroom pegs on this have definitely been a mixed report thing in my brief experience between me and the context of, like, people on my streams. Regardless, though, you can totally T-pose with these humongous limbs. Thanks to the transformation, there is a full-on double-jointed elbow. You got a big bicep swivel and a ball-socketed wrist that is just a wrist swivel, really. There's a transformation joint, but it's not the right way. I would not really try to turn that into something it's not. Big, massive, mushroomy waist swivel. Once again, it's a double one, and once again, this is one everyone, when I open this on the stream, everyone's like, get ready for that thing to feel bad, and mine feels great. It doesn't work itself out, it doesn't have any lumps on it. A bunch of people watching my stream apparently had ones with lumps on the mushroom cylinders, so I don't know what to tell you. Pretty easy to get some shock oil in there if you have to, pretty easy to, I guess, just pop it out. It's big and thick enough if you get some heat in there to shave down a lump if you see one. I don't have a lump in there, so I'm hypothesizing on what one could do, but it seems very accessible. Them legs can kick forward and backward. Them legs can split, not into a full teabagging type thing. He unfortunately is polite. He can pop a squat though. Like, check that out. Because there's big thigh swivels in there, and some knee joints, and some ankle joints, and there's a transformation arrangement here that you can kind of make work for some stuff, but don't expect the world out of it, just see if it helps you. These knees, by the way, on mine were pretty loose out of the box. They're not super loose now, but loose enough that I'm going to tighten them up, I think. What's interesting is you can see right in here a couple of little gaps. So A, that's going to make it really easy for me to get some varnish in there to tighten this up, but B, that looks to me like up until the umpteenth hour, this was a ratchet joint. That's like spacing in there for the clicketer wheels with the teeth and things. Anyway, I think this was going to be a ratchet joint up until a certain point, but on the bright side, tightening it is not gonna lightening it. Basically, I think this is not going to be hard to tighten. Finally, on the topic of balance, on the topic of it looking like there were going to be fold-out heels here that aren't anymore, but they're even sculpted in a way that looks like you were supposed to see them folded out. I've seen people bring up the balance thing. My friend Chris Carnage has definitely had troubles with this. And if you try to plant him here in a normal stock, standing pose, he's not too hard to tip over. However, this entire figure feels like it was designed for the legs to be like that, to be forward slightly with the hero S-curve posture. And once you do that, the center of balance, for me, has not been an issue whatsoever. But I could definitely see that if you were trying to have, like, this, a slightly more A-stanced pose, it could be a little bit trickier. I still haven't really had problems, though, with him falling over, so I'm not sure what to tell you, but I know more than one person has told me that they've had a lot of problems with the lack of heel support. It just hasn't been an issue for me. Overall, I found the articulation on Legacy Animated Optimus to be pretty darn fun. All of the big shapes can move and emote, and generally I find that he goes from being like this to, like, really dynamic, extremely fast. While he doesn't quite hit the semi-recent heights of Reactivate Optimus or Volvo Optimus, Legacy United's animated Optimus still fires off tons of giddy neurons in my head thanks to his beefy shapes and mash-shifty transformation. It also helps that my copy is generally solid. I have definitely heard from more than 5, but less than 15 folks that tolerances can be potentially quite variable on this guy, and I definitely had lots of stream viewers slightly shocked when it was clear that the waist swivel on mine just works smoothly. It's unfortunate that there are scattered reports of bunk joint quality, as I feel this figure is a bunch of yellow paint apps and 2 ratcheted knees away from turning me into an insufferable cheerleader. Still, Toy Hack's label sheets exist, and I can't ignore the fact that we know there's a face-plated head sculpt in this toy's steel tooling, along with some obvious vaporware trailer connectivity, let alone the fact that DNA Design has a trailer set coming out for this guy that's gotten me the most interested I've been in their stuff in literal years. While I hope we do get to see Ratchet and Rounder Bulkhead join them, I'm very content with the current Animated Universe Legacy trio. My headcanon generators are thrumming, and all 3 figures have qualities I really enjoy, even if none of them were wave-defining hits for me. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and thanks to the extracurricular support of all my Patreon patrons and YouTube channel members, I can look back on the fact that I reviewed the original versions of the Legacy Animated Trio over 16 years ago with satisfaction and existential dread.